Good afternoon, YouTube. Welcome to AGK's Vinyl Life. I'm your host, Anthony K, and today is Monday, May 4th, 2020. And what's so special about May 4th? It's Star Wars Day. International Star Wars Day today, celebrating the release of the original first Star Wars movie way back in 1977. Hence why I'm doing my Star Wars thing today. And around me you can see New Hope picture disc version, Empire Strikes Back gold vinyl, Return of the Jedi gold vinyl, and the recent trilogy Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker. Plus we got a collection of Funkos here, which were all from Return of the Jedi. But today's video is not about Star Wars. That's it for Star Wars. Today's video is about the quarantine edition of the Vinyl Tag 2020. I believe it came out about a week or so ago from Noble Records, and everybody's been jumping on the bandwagon and doing their Vinyl Tag quarantine edition, so I thought I'd jump in too and do mine. So yeah, today's episode we are doing the Vinyl Tag 2020 quarantine edition. I'm not going to waste any more time. I've got the questions in front of me here on my iPad so I can see them. Got my stack of vinyl pre-prepared, most of it. And away we go. Favorite record from your home state or city? Well, this is Canada, so we don't have states, we have provinces. So my home province is Ontario and city is Toronto. So favorite record from that would be really hard. It would be really hard to pick one. As my regulars that watch this channel know, I just did a big video last week on Toronto artists and albums. And I featured a whole big long video showing various Toronto artists and albums. So I don't want to repeat myself from what I did last week. So it's so hard to pick something, a single thing from our province, because I think Ontario has probably contributed more to music in the world than any other province in Canada. Not that they don't contribute. There's wonderful musicians from all across our country, but Ontario has had so many artists. It would be impossible for me to pick a favorite, just impossible. But I will show a couple favorites of mine without repeating myself from what I've shown in the past. So first up, in that favorite record from your home state or city, I'm going to go with Rush 2112. This is the anniversary deluxe box edition that came out a couple of years ago. And yeah, Rush 2112. Canadian boys, Rush, recorded right here in Toronto Sound Studios. 2112, I think the album that kind of launched them into the stratosphere. It had limited success up to this point with their first three albums, but 2112, it took them global. An incredible album. This anniversary pressing, fantastic. This box came with a CD version, 2 CD version, actually 2 CD version, plus a DVD with videos and a live performance, a triple vinyl with the original album, plus the album redone by other artists. Just a wealth of stuff in here. It also included a pencil sketch of the Starman, a Massey Hall ticket stub litho, a Massey Hall handbill, 3 collector's buttons, and a fantastic Starman turntable mat. Fantastic album. 2112, still probably my absolute favorite by Rush. It's hard for me to pick one, but I think 2112. This might even go into one of my most played albums of all time. Question later on, for sure. But 2112, fantastic album. Absolutely. And also, for that favorite album from your home or state, I'm going to throw a hats off to the Oakville band, which is about 10 minutes away from me, who I showed in my Toronto video last week, Saga. And this album, Worlds Apart, was their biggest album for sure, and an absolutely fantastic album. This album took them out of Canada and took them around the world. Worlds Apart, incredible, with the big hits on it, On the Loose, and Wind Him Up, but this whole album is a fantastic spin, beginning to end. On the Loose, Time's Up, Wind Him Up, Amnesia, Framed, The Interview, No Regrets, Chapter 5, Conversations, and No Stranger, Chapter 8. This album, if you don't have it, get it. Fantastic spin, absolutely. So it would be up there in one of my favorite albums of all time from Toronto. Next question. An album you highly recommend? Well, this is from a Canadian artist as well. And I have shown an album by this artist. One of my first videos I did on this channel was an unboxing of her latest album, as I was blessed to be asked by her to review the test pressings of her album, as I lived very close to the pressing plant. So it was quite an honor to be asked to review the test pressings and help her with the launch of her latest album on vinyl. But this is the previous album. This came out at the end of 2018, November 2018. I picked this up in the beginning of 2019. The artist is LEAH. The album is The Quest. And this is definitely an album I would highly recommend. This actually I picked as my #1 album I bought for 2019. I just absolutely fell in love with this album. It is spectacular. This is right from her. This is a clear vinyl version bought right from her website. Of course, you can buy this, you can either buy from her website or, Amazon or where Great Music sold. LEAH, The Quest, the title track, 10-minute song, absolutely mind-blowing. I highly recommend this album. I would put this in she's from Vancouver, Canada, and she's a totally independent artist, and she does everything herself in her home studio, but she farms out the instrumental parts to musicians around the world who send her there. Some of those musicians are from famous bands such as Nightwish, the European metal artists. So this would be symphonic metal. She's got an absolutely gorgeous voice. You really have to give this a spin. I believe you can even listen to this on Bandcamp. But I highly recommend this album. Support independent artists. You won't be sorry. Like I said, this ended up, I think, being my #1 album of 2019 that I purchased. I just absolutely love this album. It's symphonic metal, gorgeous instrumentation, beautiful vocals. Highly recommend. LEAH, The Quest. Find it. You won't be sorry. She's fantastic. If you like metal, if you like symphonic metal, you will love this album. It is fantastic. Number 3, tip for a beginner. #1 tip for a beginner is, I could give a lot of tips to beginners, but I think this will be my tip for the beginner, so I don't kind of repeat what other people have probably said. I haven't seen every vinyl tag video out there, but my tip for a beginner: sleeve your records. Sleeve the albums. Every single record in my collection, every single one, has an outer sleeve to protect the cover. That could also go as a pet peeve of mine, even when the pet peeve question comes into play, is that I see so many people showing their records and they're just all slid together. And then you wonder why you have what's called ring wear, where the scuff marks on the outer jacket and the shape of the record, and the jackets are scuffed up. Ever since I was a kid, and I still do today, I have always sleeved every one of my albums, every single one. Bad, good, they're all sleeved. Every single record has a sleeve on it, of various qualities. I have, basic, these are called plain Janes. I have plain Janes, which are on the majority, but I also have my crystal clear vinyl storage solutions covers that I put on a lot of my special things like record store day, because they are more of a premium price than plain Janes, which you can buy 100 for like 25 bucks. So you're talking 25 cents for a sleeve. That's like a vinyl storage solution, so it protects the album very well, but nothing wrong with the plain Janes. Anything, sleeve every single one of your records. It's 25 cents probably. a sleeve, and it can save your albums. All my albums dating right back to the early 70s all look gorgeous because I've always sleeved the records. Absolutely. Number one thing you do, sleeve every one of your albums. That's my biggest tip for beginners. If you're going to invest, you know, $2, $5, $10, $20, $30, $50, $100 in a record, 25 cents for a sleeve, folks. 25 cents for a sleeve. Absolutely. Sleeve your records. And secondly, dump these crap paper liners and put inner liners, which I'll discuss in a minute. But yeah, that's my tip for a beginner. Sleeve your album covers. So, next, first record, number 4, first record that really got you into deeper music. Well, I've shown this on, I think, on my very first video, maybe not my first, second or video or so, where I showed the first albums I ever owned in my life. So definitely Santana. Debut album, just called Santana, would have been the album that really got me. Before this, I mean, I did buy a couple albums before this one, which I've discussed if you see that video. I was mostly into 7-inch singles. I was a kid, you know, I was like 11, 12, and I got allowance, so all I could afford were like, you know, 99, 69, 79, 89, 99 cent singles. So the first one of the first albums I ever owned was this, Santana. And it really did get me into buying albums, because this thing was just, this album is spectacular, beginning to end, hands down, no questions asked. You know, Evil Wait, Shades of Time, Savor, Jingo, Persuasion, Treat, You Just Don't Care, and of course, Soul Sacrifice. This album definitely would be one of the ones that put me into deeper music for sure. And I'll also put this down. Let's see if I can find the question. There's a question later on that asks for question number 16. Show an album with an animal on the cover. Well, this can also go down as an album with an animal on our cover, because here we've got the lion. So here's 2 questions answered in one. Okay, going to number 5. An obscure record people might not know about. I'm going to go with another Canadian independent artist and an obscure record. And this is from about 3 years ago, 2016. And this is an album by a fellow, or a group, whatever you want to call it, by an artist called Projekt Gemineye. So definitely an obscure album. You can find Projekt Gemineye on Bandcamp. He produces everything himself. He's very much like LEAH, totally independent, Toronto, from Brampton, Ontario, Toronto artist. And this stuff is fantastic. He does all the instruments himself, everything, the guitars, the bass, the keyboards, the drum, everything is done by him, records it, mixes it, does everything himself. And this is, I would call this progressive rock, metal, somewhere in between rock, progressive rock, and metal. If you like Rush, things like Rush, Yes, things like that, you will like Projekt Gemineye. I highly recommend him. Independent artist. So, you know, I got to give a shout out to those independent artists, definitely in the obscure side. This is his debut album, An Ordinary Day. He's recorded since 3 more albums since this, which are all great. This is my favorite, I still think, of all of them, but they're all fantastic. Absolutely. Find this artist, look him up. You won't be sorry. Projekt Gemineye. This is An Ordinary Day. Fantastic. Get it. Next up, a group who you collect all of their records, or try to. Well, that is hard, because I collect a lot of artists and a lot of albums by a lot of artists. But I'll just pick 2 off the top of my head, because I probably have more albums by them than anybody. First would be Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper, who's got, I believe, around 26 studio albums plus live albums, and I try to collect everything that he's got. And there's going to be more on Alice Cooper in a few minutes, so stay tuned for that. And the other group that I would say I have more than anybody would be Golden Earring. Golden Earring, Dutch band from Holland, underrated, absolutely incredible. The same four guys are still together to this day, still making new music. They too have 26 studio albums and at least 8 live albums plus multiple singles. That particular one right there is actually a 10-inch, which kind of goes showing another question in our video today. That's a 10-inch double LP greatest hits from some of their, maybe their first 6 albums or so. So Golden Earring would be another band that I collect everything of. Okay, question number 7. A band whose second album is better than their first. I'm going to go with the Parsons Project, I, Robot. Parsons' first album was called Tales of Mystery and Imagination by Edgar Allan Poe. A fantastic album, but very different to this one. In fact, all their albums sounded different as they recorded them, constantly changing their sound slightly. But this one here, the second album, I, Robot, absolute classic album, one you need in your collection. If you've never heard of the album, the Parsons Project before, try this one out first, I, Robot, with the fantastic opener, I, Robot, which was an instrumental piece. The big single, I Wouldn't Want to Be Like You. Some Other Time, another single, Breakdown, Don't Let It Show is the next single. Breakdown, The Voice, Nucleus, Day After Day, Total Eclipse, Genesis. Parsons, I, Robot, their second album, fantastic. Number 8, Show and Tell a Whack-A-Mole, random pick. Oh, Whack-A-Mole. Okay, well, let's just go behind me here. Let's go and try to reach behind me and just pull something. I can't get one out. Oh my God. It looks like I got into the seasonal music. Oh, there's a Whack-A-Mole if I've ever seen one. My gosh, it's Disney. Merry Christmas carols. Oh my gosh, there you go. That's a Whack-A-Mole of a Whack-A-Mole. Disney's Merry Christmas carols, including the Chipmunk song, Joy the World, Here Comes Claus, 12 Days of Christmas. There you go. There's a Whack-A-Mole if I ever saw one. Okay, next, number 9. What album have you listened to the most in your life? There's probably 3 that I don't know which one I've listened to more in my life. That Santana I showed you, the first Santana album, that would definitely be up there as one of the ones I've listened to more in my life. The other one I've listened to more in my life than anything, Golden Earring Moontan. Absolutely, Golden Earring Moontan. Play the grooves. I've had so many versions of this album. Love this album. I've shown this before. Golden Earring Moontan, Santana's first album. And I would also put Thin Lizzy, Bad Reputation is up there as albums I've played more times in my life, and I've shown this before. And even Alice Cooper, Billion Dollar Babies, also up there as an album I've played more times than anything in my life. And this is my original 1973 copy. So there's 3 albums that I played, 4 albums that I played more than anything in my life. Number 10, show an album with a crazy story. And you're going to enjoy this one. Alice Cooper again. And here is the crazy story. And this is a crazy story. When this album came out in 1975, I was, I believe, 15 or 16 years old. And I used to babysit. Yes, I used to babysit my next door neighbor's kids. And my next door neighbor was a lawyer. He was an entertainment lawyer. And it turns out that at the time, he was an entertainment lawyer, and he represented Shep Gordon here in Canada, who of course managed Alice Cooper. So being involved in the entertainment law and knowing Shep Gordon, who was Alice Cooper's manager, producer, I was able to get a real treat in my life, and that was all around Mr. Cooper and the Welcome to My Nightmare album and tour. So in 1975, when Welcome to My Nightmare was released, my next door neighbor got me a copy of Welcome to My Nightmare before it was released. This is my original 1975 Welcome to My Nightmare. Before it was released to the public, I was given this. And I was given this. To Anthony from Alice, 75. And this was called a press kit. And it was a press kit for the album and the Welcome to My Nightmare tour. And my mind was blown. Imagine being 15 years old, Alice Cooper is one of your favorite bands, and you're given this. And what's in a press kit? That's what's in a press kit. Welcome My Nightmare in concert. A copy of the tour program. Copy of the tour program. Glossy photos. Now these press kits were given to radio stations, so the radio stations could promote and talk about the artist. Glossy 8x10s. Look at these, and they still look gorgeous. They haven't faded, nothing. Glossy prints. This is one of my favorite pieces of memorabilia my whole life. A letter that talks about the album, the tour, everything about the tour, the choreography, the lighting, everything. Notes that the DJs could read on radio shows to help promote the album. And then it even had these nice rice paper biographies. Biography of Alice Cooper, Dick Wagner on guitar, Steve Hendrick on guitar. They're all mini biographies. Practice John on bass. Joseph Krierowski on keyboards. Penty Glenn on drums. Biographies. This was a press kit. And it was a real treat to really receive this. And last but not least, all still in this crazy story, not only did I get the album and the press kit, but right here, a floor seat to Welcome to My Nightmare, 2 tickets to the show, Welcome to My Nightmare, Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens, 1975. I also got 2 tickets to the show. And this is a book of all my concert tickets going right back. My very first concert I ever went to in my life, Alice Cooper, 1973, Billion Dollar Babies Tour, Maple Leaf Gardens. My very first concert. And here, one day maybe I'll show all these things. Ticket concert stubs from concerts through all my lifetime. Next up, number 11. Your collecting pet peeve. Well, my collecting pet peeve is kind of goes hand in hand with the thing I was talking about earlier about people not sleeving their albums. That is definitely a pet peeve. People that don't sleeve their albums and then they just get all scuffed up. Album artwork is important. You need to take care of it. But my biggest pet peeve is spending, if I'm going to go a modern pet peeve, it's spending, 20, 30, 40 bucks or whatever on these new remastered albums to get a piece of crap inner sleeve like this. These are absolute garbage. You pull a brand new record out of these sleeves and they've got all sorts of paper fibers on them. These are absolute junk. You would think that record companies, when they're charging what they're charging for new albums now, would at least put a decent inner sleeve inside. It's not going to cost them that much more. But yeah, this would be my number one pet peeve, is these crappy inner sleeves that record companies are putting on. And like I said, and people that don't sleeve the outside of the records for a lousy 25 cents, you can protect your collection and keep it looking like new. And there's so many alternatives. For inner sleeves, you can go with the really deluxe. These are the deluxe vinyl storage solution inner sleeves that make your record. If you can see on this picture disc, they just look beautiful with these sleeves on them. These are a little more premium price, but worth it. Or you can go with a little more generic, but whatever you get the anti-static sleeves. Don't get paper sleeves. There are some better quality paper sleeves out there, and some record companies do use them. But those ones that I just showed you, those are absolute garbage, and they just end up scuffing your records, and they just look like crap with those sleeves. So get rid of them. Buy a new album. You open it up, you find, that's a big pet peeve. You open it, find one of those sleeves right away. I chuck those out and use one of these ones here, which are a little more generic, or one of my vinyl storage solution ones. Or for really special recordings, I always go with the MoFi. The MoFi sleeves. Fantastic sleeves. There's my pet peeve. Next up, where are we? We're on number 12. An album or genre people would be surprised to know you like. I like pop. I like everything. I like modern day pop. I like Ariana Grande, Britney Spears. I like pop. I like rock. I like everything. But if I were to go back to where that all started, and if somebody would be surprised that I love, it would be Olivia Newton-John. Yes. I followed her right from when she started. I was a teenage boy, and she was probably my first crush in my lifetime. I had a crush on this girl, I tell you. She was my first artist I had a crush on, and maybe why I've always loved pop. Her music was kind of country, kind of folky, kind of pop. But yeah, I love me some Olivia Newton-John every once in a while. This is one of her albums, greatest hits. I do have most of her albums, but this is her greatest hits album. And yeah, she was my first crush when I was a teenage boy. Olivia Newton-John, yeah. People be surprised that I'm listening to Iron Maiden and I'm also listening to Olivia Newton-John. Okay, what's next? That was number 12. Number 13, a record from the year you were born. Henry Mancini, music from Peter Gunn, 1959. Yes, I'm that old. Peter Gunn, 1959. This isn't... People think this is a soundtrack. Don't fool yourself. This, as far as I'm concerned, is my #1 jazz album in my collection. This album, music from Peter Gunn, it's more a jazz album than a soundtrack. I think they basically, if you ever watched those old black and white Peter Gunn detective series shows, there was always jazz playing in the background and jazz music. So this wasn't written as a soundtrack to a show, but it's just a jazz album that they incorporated into the show. This would be my #1 go-to for a jazz album. This thing is absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend this if you're looking for, this is like bopping jazz, lots of brass, xylophones, vibraphone, whatever you want to call it. It's just a snapping album. You're just going to be all the way through. Highly recommend it. Everybody knows the theme to Peter Gunn. It's a very famous song. I highly recommend this album for jazz. And this is from the year I was born. Next up, show a 10-inch and or share your opinion on 10-inch. Well, 10 inches, it's a weird format. I only have a thin pile of 10 inches. I get them when there's something special, and it's only on a 10-inch, so obviously I have to get it. That was a 10-inch I showed you right there. 10 inches were originally 78s. So the first records that came out before 33s and 45s, they were 78s. They were shellac. They were 78s. And 78s were 10-inch records, and that's where that format came from. So that's why it still survives to this day. And actually, if you look at the Confessin' the Blues album that came out a couple years ago, all the albums inside look like 78s on it. But if I were going to pick one to show, I'm going to show this one here. This is my favorite 10-inch out there, the Clash, Black Market Clash. This is fantastic. This is one of my favorite Clash albums, and it's long enough to almost be an album because it runs close to half an hour long and has such great things as Capital Radio 1, The Prisoner, Pressure Drop, Cheat, City of the Dead, that classic Chambers Brothers song, Time is Tight, plus another 3 or 4 songs. Great album. Black Market Clash on a 10-inch. I know there is a 12-inch version available out there somewhere, but the original 10-inch Black Market Clash, one of the best Clash albums out there. This was in between, I believe, London Calling and Sandinista. So Black Market Clash, 10-inch, great album. Next up, number 15, share an interesting fact about an album or song. Okay, we're going to go back to Golden Earring, and this is the European version. The original first version of Moontan by Golden Earring, which I showed you earlier. And the interesting fact about this, other than the fact that the cover in Canada, which was lame, of a black and white cover of an ear with a golden earring on it, and the original cover of the Showgirl, of the Vanilla Queen, other than the two different covers, the other interesting fact about this album is that it had a different track listing. The original Moontan had on it 2 songs that weren't included on the Canadian version of Moontan. Just like Vince Taylor, which ended up being a B-side of Radar Love, and another song. And those 2 songs, not only was the track order mixed up, the actual play order was changed on the Canadian version of Moontan as opposed to the original European version of Moontan. Not only was the track order mixed up and 2 songs from this version, from this album, removed, but they added 1 song that's only on the Canadian version called Big Tree Blue Sea. And that's version, and I've talked about this before, that 1 song on the Canadian, it's the only place you can get that song, and it is a spectacular song. So that's my interesting fact. 2 different versions of Moontan, 2 different covers, 2 different track listings, different songs on the album. And I think that covers that question pretty well. Next up, show an album with an animal on the cover. Well, I already showed you. I showed you a Golden Ear, Santana with the lion, and also look at there. There's another lion, and it's on the Golden Earring album. Next up, show an album with crazy artwork. There's so many albums with crazy artwork. I sat here looking today, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've got so many albums. What do I pick? But the first one that came to my brain, so I'm going to go with that, was before I looked, and it was like, oh, this is crazy artwork. This is crazy artwork. But the first one that popped into my head when I saw this question, Scorpions, Blackout. That is some crazy artwork. Guy's got forks shoved in his eyes, pulling on him. He's screaming, glass breaking. That is one crazy cover. So I'm definitely crazy artwork. Wow, crazy artwork. Scorpions, Blackout. Of course, this spawned the massive hit No One Like You. And this was from, I believe, 1982. No One Like You, Scorpions, Blackout. Crazy, 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 crazy artwork. We're almost done. Show a really good album that you can find for cheap. Oh, I forgot to pull one for this. So we're going to skip it because I forgot to pull one. I thought I had got them all. Oh well, we'll just skip that. A lot of those albums I showed you, Golden Earring, Moontan, you probably can find it for cheap if you can find it now. The Canadian version, it's certainly around the bins in Toronto. But we're just going to go. We're going to skip that one for now because I totally forgot about it. Show an album with an acquired taste. And I'm going to go with Kurt Weill from 2018. Kurt Weill, Bottle It In. And the interesting thing about this album, I had never heard of Kurt Weill. He's an American musician. I'd never heard of him. I've since gone back and discovered some of his catalog since getting this. But I'd never heard of this fellow. And I actually saw him on Jimmy Kimmel, one of those late night concert series things on Jimmy Kimmel. And I just happened to be out one night watching Jimmy Kimmel. And I saw this fellow, Kurt Weill, perform a song. And the song was Loading Zones, which was from this album. And I just really, really liked the song and saw these guys play and really liked that one song. And immediately went on Amazon and looked up this fellow and found this album, found the album that he'd done that song from, which was his new album, Loading Zones, because I think Jimmy Kimmel even showed the cover of the album. At any rate, I went and based on a live performance of the one song, I bought this album, and I am not sorry. I bought this album, and it would definitely be an acquired taste, I think. It kind of slow. It's hard to describe it. It is rock. It's it's original. He's definitely got a sound that I've never heard any other rock musician use. I really just, and the more it's one of those albums that the more you listen to it, the more you like it. It's got a groove to it that I can't even explain. You just have to listen to it. And this ended up being number 3 on my top albums of last year. I purchased this right at the end of 2018. I think I got it in the mail like right around Christmas 2018. So for 2019, I put this in number 3 for my top albums of 2019 because I played it over and over all year long. This is definitely a go back to all constantly album. I play it in the car on my stream it from my phone on my car. I love this album. There's more I listen to it, the more little things I discover in it. So yeah, an acquired taste for sure, but I am not sorry, and I absolutely love this album. Kurt Vile, Bottle It In. Check it out. And last but not least, show your most recent find. Well, that's going to be really easy because as I was setting up my camera and pulling all these albums and everything out, I heard the dog barking. And the dog was barking because the mailman came. And the mailman came, and I'm going to put on a glove here because I'm always a little weary of packages these days. The mailman came and brought me this box. So I'm going to show an album which is my most recent find. I think right here is my most recent find because this literally came to my front door less than an hour before I started recording this video. So I haven't even opened it yet. So this will definitely be my most recent find. I got my knife. We're going to open it. I've got a few things on pre-order or back order or whatever, so let's just see what it is. This is my most recent find, for sure, because it just walked in the door right before I started this video, so you can't get more recent than that. I think the inside is safe because it's probably been in the mail for a few weeks. We're gonna slice it anyhow. And we open it up, and there's even more packing in it. And what do we have in here? My most recent find. I can take that off now. There we have it, Urban Outfitters exclusive. The final album I need to complete my complete collection. I now have every one of her albums on vinyl. This just came out, and it was a pre-order. And this is Brittany Jean, featuring the hits Work Bitch, Perfume, and Alien on one limited edition on hot pink vinyl. We got Britney Spears, Brittany Jean. My latest find, because it just literally arrived at my front door. And that's my Vinyl Tag 2020 Quarantine Edition. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you all next week for another video. I hope you enjoyed this. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Comments down below as usual. And turn the notifications on, that little bell thing, so you don't miss one of my videos. Please leave comments, what you'd like to see me do next. I'll be back again in 1 week with a video. Please, everybody, be safe. Stay home, social distance, wash your hands, all that jazz. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram. And that's at AGK_lifetime of vinyl, where I post my spin of the day every day. Happy Star Wars Day, everybody. Cheers.